After having waited practically 3 whole weeks for a new chapter of Hajime no Ippo, the author has given us nothing but crumbs, nothing but scraps, a very short chapter. And even though we are in the middle of the fight between Takeshi Sendo and Ricardo Martínez, for me, the great protagonist here is Mamoru Takamura. Now then, let us begin with the review of chapter 1501. The chapter begins exactly where we had left off, with Sendo being knocked out by a right-hand counter from Ricardo Martínez, the same counter that the champion himself calls a rifle. We can see Sendo lying unconscious with a face that did not give me any good feeling at all, not in the slightest. The narrator tells us the following: explosion in the second round. Sendo has already fallen twice. Will the challenger be able to get up again to challenge the champion once more? All of the audience is extremely astonished, absolutely shocked. Of course, Ippo and Miyata too, although Miyata is surprised in that handsome mode of his, I suppose, because he does not even have a single drop of sweat, unlike Ippo, who is drenched, completely soaked. The right hand of the champion spits fire once again, and the challenger falls for the second time in the same round. The narrator tells us, we can see the reaction of 4 characters as if it were a mirror. On the left we have Sendo's grandmother, very serious, watching the situation. On the right, equally serious, we have Mamoru Takamura. On the left again we have someone worried, Sendo's teacher, and on the right, Eiji Date takes that same role. The public, for their part, cannot understand it. It cannot be possible that Sendo, who endures like no one else, has fallen just like that. What the hell is happening? They were asking, very worried. Now Sendo is already at the count of 3, lifting himself up, the tiger asking the referee not to keep counting because he is already on his feet. We focus directly on Ricardo Martínez, and in my last review I mentioned that Ricardo's arm was trembling and many doubted me, saying that I was just paranoid, imagining things. But in this chapter, the author made it much more explicit. Not only did he show us Ricardo's arm trembling, but it is also beginning to turn purple from the number of blows he has blocked from Sendo, while Sendo keeps standing up, trembling without stop. The audience, upon seeing this, kept murmuring. He got up so quickly. And if he got up that quickly, maybe it didn't hurt him that much, right? Ippo, very shocked, realized that it was impossible for that punch not to have hurt. And of course, Miyata, with his experience, tells us that that right hand landed perfectly, right on target, leaving us clear that it was practically a perfect counter. We see Takamura murmuring Sendo's name, while Sendo, still completely obsessed, the first thing that comes to his mind when he gets up is, I have to take the belt to my grandmother. He throws himself toward Ricardo, and this made me put my hands on my head and lament, saying, how on earth is Sendo still with the same mentality? Definitely something is not right. Why out of nowhere would he be so obsessed with this idea? And also, even though his eyes do not show it that way, I have the slight suspicion that Sendo is not completely conscious after that fall. Just as the public said, he got up too quickly, which makes me doubt a little being sincere. The fight continues, and we see how Sendo hits the guard of Ricardo Martínez with a lot of fury. Once again, Ricardo blocks with his right arm, which sooner or later will have to give in. At this moment, I believe it is the only way that Sendo will be able to give a decent fight, because if we are honest, he is doing it horribly. He is not showing his best ability, not even close. The audience points out that Sendo's fists are still alive, only for him right after to receive a jab, a left hand, that makes his legs keep trembling without stopping his advance and even forcing him to step back. Seeing him staggering, our tiger of Naniwa is in his last moments. He had already fallen twice, while Sendo kept thinking about his grandmother, kept thinking that he had to take her the belt, to the point that his face completely deformed, and we saw on his face a pathetic expression, a face of desperation that does not transmit to me at all the usual Sendo vibe. This is not what the character has always been for us. Something is wrong, something is very wrong with the tiger, because this face is not of someone who is in a boxing match against the world champion. While he was thinking, the man raised by my grandmother is going to come back with his chest held high as the world champion, something that not many noticed happens. In this transition, in the panel of Sendo defending and the next, with that desperate face, Sendo rejects a blow from Ricardo, so he starts to break through. But when Takamura saw this desperate face of Sendo, just like us, he felt very disappointed. He stood up, shouting Sendo's name very loudly, frightening Eiji Date and the commentator. He is furious, the veins on his face are bulging. Takamura cannot bear to see Sendo like this. And here the chapter ends, while the commentator keeps telling us that inside the ring, the challenger clings to the fight, pressing with sheer force alone. For many, Takamura's behavior in this last scene is quite surprising, but for me, it only confirms that he sees Sendo as if he were a younger brother. Someone who, whether we like it or not, has a personality very similar to Mamoru himself. Not only does he have the guts to have sparred twice against the world champion, but in a certain way, it makes me think that Sendo has always been everything Takamura wanted in a younger brother. Everything he wished Ippo could be. Someone determined, with grit, with instincts, who does not give up and who endures everything to fulfill his goals. Opening his way, even beating the best, reaching the very top of the world. Ricardo Martínez. But unfortunately for Takamura, this boxer, to whom he has shown his respect on multiple occasions, even taking him seriously in a sparring, is throwing this opportunity into the trash. He is far from showing all that he is, and obviously this fills Takamura with fury. The fact that Takamura is taking this attitude makes it clear to me that Sendo is not fighting at 100%, something very obvious, but that Takamura saying it confirms it to me. Because for example, in the fight that Ippo had against Alfredo Gonzalez, Takamura, who was also a commentator and was able to see how Ippo was practically beaten the whole match, did not do anything like this. He did not shout for Ippo, he did not try to encourage him, because he definitely saw him as someone inferior to his opponent. And in this case, if he gets so furious with Sendo, it is because he believes that Sendo could be doing much better. He believes that Sendo is capable of doing something against Ricardo, which is why he cannot bear to see him being totally pathetic. Although in this situation I feel that Sendo is so absorbed in his own thoughts, in his own obsession, that I see it almost impossible for him to hear Takamura's words, for him to hear his voice and react. Although I hope I am wrong and that Sendo reacts and gives us the fight that we came here to see, one of the best in the manga. Because if it continues this way, it definitely will not be. Remember to subscribe for more content on this manga. Good night, champ.